Welcome to Big 'em Up Dollar Bin Digs, where we review some of the best and the worst hidden gems on Discogs and from our local record stores. Mostly drum and bass, maybe some dubstep every once in a while, some other electronic music as we get going. Today it's all drum and bass, so let's get started. First up, we have in Industrial Action LP sampler featuring Total Science and Blue Box. The Total Science tune is it's a great little liquidy tune for that era, early 2000s. Kind of generic, not like super standing out to me, honestly, but the B-side is Blue Box, who I'd never heard of, and looking them up, they've only had a couple releases, and this is their only drum and bass release. But actually, this tune's pretty great. It's got some vocals going in, back and forth between some female vocals and this weird British rap filtered thing. But it works for me. It's got some nice amens and some Apache work kind of layered in after the break. And it's got some not snare, percussion stuff later, and that plays off the vocals. I really like it. Definitely worth, picking up on the cheap, if you see it out there. Next up, we've got Accidental Heroes on Fuse Records. Fuse Records is a label that was run by A-Sides for a long time. You can usually tell Fuse Records because they have this blue sleeve. Honestly, they've had big artists release on Fuse, but I've never found any tunes on Fuse that I just absolutely love. But I still pick it up because it's usually big name guys. I mean, Accidental Heroes is Sonic and Silver together as a team as Accidental Heroes. But these two tunes are so generic, I'm not even don't even know the name of the tunes. Haven't even memorized it. I do know that the B-side was my favorite of the two. So if I saw this for $1, I'd probably pick it up. Anything more than that, you might want to pass on, unless you're a huge Accidental Hero fan or trying to get all everything on Fuse. Next, we've got Prolog on Hard Leaders. This is a weird release. Right in the middle of the Hard Leaders catalog, a 1990 tune. Don't know anything really about Prolog. I looked them up once again on Discogs. It's got some releases. Most of them are on Hard Leaders. Hard Leaders, if you're not aware, it mostly does kind of tear out tunes. Really heavy, amen, tear out, dance floor, Dillinger type of stuff. In fact, Dillinger released quite a few tunes on this label. Hard Leaders has some huge anthems over the years. The A-side, External Verification, is super weird. Really blippy bloopy, not really a real subby bass line, which is kind of rare for these earlier tunes. The drums are super repetitive, so repetitive and broken, they're really broken beat. They're not so formulaic, but super repetitive. So much so I looked over at my record multiple times to see if it was skipping. Not really feeling the A-side. Terrafirma, on the other hand, a little bit more of a traditional drum and bass song. Drums really sound like they came from a terrible sample pack, but the song does build up, and it gets better as it's going. As I was listening to it a couple times, it starts out, and I'm like, ugh, this is not so great. Those drums are pretty bad, and then he builds, and he builds, and he builds, and it's definitely still pretty experimental. And then probably the best part is the last 30 seconds of the tune, the part that never gets heard when you're DJing out. It's an interesting release. I don't know if I could recommend it, but I gotta you know, I got to applaud Hard Leaders and Prolog for trying to do something different. Even back in '99 when drum bass was a little bit more experimental in the mainstream. Like I said, pick it up if it's cheap. I wouldn't spend too much on it though. Next is the Adina Part 2. This is a bootleg, not on an official label. It's a bootleg of 2 songs, and the bootlegs are by Zinc and Hype. Now, I'm pretty sure that the A side is Hype and the B side is Zinc, or the other way around. I don't think they're produced together, but I could be wrong because there isn't a lot of information on this, including what the songs are of. Both the vocal samples on these sound super familiar, and I tried like Googling it, and I tried looking up Discogs, couldn't find anything. Now, both these tunes are pretty jump-uppy, and the weird thing is both of them, the vocals seem off to me to the beat. Like, they're not pitched perfectly to the beat, or the BPMs are a little bit off compared to the actual drums. The A side, which I think is Zinc, definitely feeling that one more. I like the bass. It uses the action break, which is a real dry, hard break. But for the most part, honestly, this is pretty crap. I'd skip this one. I picked it up because it was Zinc and Hype. You know, they both have released some amazing tunes, and they've both released some crap tunes. This would be on the crap side if you ask me. Last but not least, we have Q Project on Function. Function Records is run by Digital. Mostly releases by Digital, but he does release some stuff from his friends, including Q Project. Who else did I see on the label? Who else is on the label? Spirit, obviously. For the most part, it's a pretty quality label. You know you're probably going to get something a little harder, a little heavy, very digital sounding. I tend to like Function Records. Digital recently relaunched it and has been releasing some pretty heavy, dubbed out stuff on it. Some of the earlier stuff can get picked up really cheap. So it's usually a label I'm kind of looking out for in the dollar bins. We start out with 40 Below, 808 bass, a little bit lighter in sound, some like studded vocals. Nice song, nothing to write home about. But the B side, or the AA, is called Safety Clause. This is a great tune. Super heavy bass, droney bass line throughout. It's got some amens patterned in there, some real interesting layers of drums where like they start to add a second snare partway through, and then the Apache comes in for part of it. I dig this tune. This is the type of stuff that I absolutely love finding for cheap, because this is a tune that's great and should be heard. Unfortunately, I can't find them on Spotify to share all links, but I will have links in the Discogs to the Discogs of these if you're interested in hearing them, or you can search YouTube usually and find them. Anyways, if you dig what I'm doing here, check out my other videos and subscribe. Thank you.